Welcome back, AP. All right, so great job today in class. I know to some of y'all that this isn't the most riveting stuff on the planet, but I happen to find it really, really interesting because of the political back and forth of the parliament and the king. And it's also really interesting to kind of just analyze a family's attempt at absolutism when it's going to fall flat, right? So it is really important to also understand the English Civil War and the Glorious Revolution, which is coming up soon, due to the fact that the AP test loves to ask about this stuff, right? They love to ask about it because it's a very major, key, pivotal event in European history following the growth of, well, not even following, it's actually during the growth of absolutism, a constitutional system is able to prevent the growth of an absolute system, right? So, in the English Civil War, when it breaks out because 5 guys escape from Parliament when they're like, open the door in the name of the king, and they're like, no. 9. Now, anyway, a major event's going to occur, the English Civil War, right? Charles runs to the northern area of England and assembles an army, and his army is known as the Old Model Army, right? And it is made up of the gentry, right? And the word gentry means wealthy, right? And also it's made up of mercenaries, and it has a very large cavalry, right? And they're going to be referred to as the Cavaliers, right? Now, the Cavaliers in the Old Model Army look something like this. There you go. Hold on. Cavaliers apparently look something like this. All right, so as you can see, apparently I'm a Cavalier as of right now. Wait, should I get closer? Is that how this works? No, wait. There we go. Yeah, so apparently Cavaliers look like this, right? Now, Cavaliers are, of course, very, very fancy dressers, right? They are also very, very, wealthy individuals, usually serving in a cavalry unit of some type. They have a very large horse. And also, big things to notice about them early on. I actually now had to move my face, but, if we're looking for fancy. So now, look, big thing about it, though, if you're looking at them, they're very well known for flaunting their wealth, all right? So particularly, a Cavalier, when you see one, due to the fact that they have, one, long and luxurious hair, which was very stylistic at the time, right? Very, very common trend during this time period was to have very long, luxurious hair, right? If you had the money to afford its upkeep. Right? So Cavaliers had the money to afford the upkeep of their hair, and also they would usually be very well known for their mustache. They were also very well known for their fancy dress, and particularly their hats, which could oftentimes contain a feather from an ostrich, right? Ostrich feathers or ostrich plumes were very, very popular at the time, and it showed your wealth due to the fact that Europe was having increasing contact with Africa, and ostrich birds and ostrich feathers were now becoming a luxury item because ostrich, of course, do not exist in Europe, right? So it's a very, very big reason that you could easily notice a Cavalier, right? Now, the other end of the fighting force, right? The Old Model Army, King Charles's Cavaliers, right? They were given the name Cavaliers by the opposite side, right? The New Model Army called them Cavaliers as a form of an insult, right? Because they were basically deriving that from the phrase caballeros, which is from Spain. So basically, in a nutshell, they were calling them foreigners and uppity foreigners at that, right? So now the Old Model Army, of course, known as the Cavaliers, called the New Model Army a negative word as well. They referred to them as the Roundheads, right? So the New Model Army was also known as the Roundheads, right? And then, actually, this one's working out pretty good as well. So the New Model Army was also known as the Roundheads, right? And the Roundheads, which I have to get closer because my head is got to be bigger than that. The Roundheads were actually very, very well known for their garb as well. They were also usually much more poor. They were much more, They were much more middle-class citizens. Also heavily made up of Puritan troops, right? So the Roundheads, though, were called this for one of two reasons. One, they were called this because of the helmet that they wore, right, which was, of course, rounded off at the top, right, as you can see right here. Or they were called this because under said helmet, they usually had short hair or buzzed hair, right? And oftentimes the Cavaliers would call them this because some of the boys that were their apprentices or some of their scribes would actually have buzz cuts to avoid lice, right? But we're not positive where the nickname comes from, but we do know it's a way that the Cavaliers used to insult them, right? Now, looking at this matchup out the gate, you would think that the Cavaliers are going to win this handily, right? You would think they're going to win because they have more wealth. They have a larger fighting force. They have a lot of other things at their disposal. But the thing about it is they're actually going to lose, right? This war was back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth until the arrival of one very, very famous leader, and his name is Oliver Cromwell, right? Oliver Cromwell was a very, very devout Puritan, right? And Oliver Cromwell is also not one of the most handsome-looking people in all of history, right? So Oliver Cromwell looks like, there he is. Oliver Cromwell looks like so, right? So Oliver Cromwell was a Puritan leader, a Puritan captain, and a Puritan general. You can actually tell this from his garb alone because of his very minimalistic outfit, also due to the fact that he just had a collar, a white collar, poking out of the top of his suit of armor right there. Now, ironically enough, this right here, that picture, that portrait, originally had Charles's face on it, right? And he actually had his face painted over top of it, okay? So, as you can tell, Oliver Cromwell, spoiler alert, is going to win this war, right? Now, Oliver Cromwell, being a devout Puritan, is going to usher in a new type of government, right? So the English Civil War, after many, many years of fighting, and especially at one really, really big battle of Edgeling Hill, Oliver Cromwell is going to use the fog and several other things to his advantage, and he is going to end up winning the English Civil War, right? But now Oliver Cromwell is stuck with a problem, right? Oliver Cromwell is stuck with one particular problem, and that problem, in a nutshell, has to do with the fact that he has a king still on the throne, Charles I, Charles Stuart, still on the throne, right? Still exists. You have to figure out how are you going to handle him? What are you going to do with him? How is this going to be now a reappropriated government? How are you going to reinstall the monarchy? What are you going to do? He's got a lot of issues, right? So the very first things after he leads the Roundheads to victory, he's going to call Parliament again, right? And Oliver Cromwell had experience dealing with the Parliament. He was elected to Parliament at one point, and immediately upon creating this new Parliament, he began to fire the members of Parliament that didn't support him. Ooh, this is interesting, right? So it seems that in the earliest forms of Oliver Cromwell's government, he almost immediately starts showing signs of an aggressive king-like leadership, right? The second he comes into power, he begins to fire all of the members of Parliament that did not support the Roundheads in the English Civil War. Now, when he does this, what he will be left with is a hyper-socially conservative Parliament that refuses to acknowledge certain customs of England, certain ideas, wants to outlaw bars and outlaw drinking and outlaw all these other things, and it's a very, very extreme, almost very conservative Parliament, known as his Rump Parliament, which is really scary. All right, so now, anyway, but do not go, I'm not making fun of the president, I'm just making a joke, right? Rump, Trump, get it. No, it's so anyway, it's not meant to be offensive. Please do not freak out. Now, anyway, so look. Anyway, another big thing about it is he's going to hold a trial on Charles, right? So once the Rump Parliament is created, he ends up putting Charles on trial. And he puts Charles on trial for treason, for his crimes against England, and he moves to have Charles executed, right? Now, since it's a parliamentary system, though, the Parliament must vote on this, right? And by one vote, the Parliament decides to execute Charles. Now, this is a pivotal moment in European history. For the very first time in European history, a king is going to be popularly executed and agreed upon to be executed by the people of his country. And the day that it occurred, it was a very, very cold day in England whenever this occurred, and Charles wanted to seem strong and did not want to go out upset, right? He did not want to go out in a very negative light, so he decided, first of all, since it was so cold out, he would wear 2 shirts to prevent himself from shivering. He also took an orange and he stuffed it full of cloves, and it gives off a very strong scent to possibly prevent him from fainting or passing out during his execution process. And when he ascended to the scaffold to be executed, he literally got up on there, and if this is the thing that you're supposed to put your head on, the executioner offered him a hood, and he said, no. And he looked upon the crowd and he says, I forgive those who are guilty of my death. And he brings his head down and he puts it down on the block. And then here comes the axe and bang! Just like his grandmother, he was executed on Tower Hill by the Parliament as well. Now, there was no dog in this one and there was no wig and stuff like that. But it's interesting to kind of think about Charles being this kind of figure at the very end where do we, in a nutshell, feel sorry for him? Sort of, because actually going into this execution, he wrote a very long letter that actually shows the letter shows his biggest unfortunate despair was the fact that he believed he deserved to be executed because he allowed his friend and favorite to be executed by the Parliament first. I, right? And now, ironically enough, also, you can go see the bill that has Charles executed. Right now, it's actually hung in Parliament, and Charles I execution bill. There is actually the piece of paper that Charles actually signed for his own execution, and it's actually hung inside of the same, oh wait, that's actually Charles's noggin right there, which is really, really fun stuff. So there you go, look at Charles. He's seen better days, as you can see. I don't know where this leopard's coming from, but there's also some blood coming out of the bottom of that. Now, the big thing about it though, is he signed the document. Here we go. This document actually has his signature on it, agreeing for his own execution. This document is also hung inside the room that the Queen enters into when she opens Parliament, to remind kings of England of what can happen to you if you do not work with the Parliament, right? So as you can tell, the Parliament and the history of English government is a very, very aggressive one, right? So Charles would be executed on that fateful day, and actually now coming into it though is now England is without a king, right? So England, you would think, would then pass rulership to Charles II, the son of Charles I. Well, Oliver Cromwell stood in the way of that, right? And he said, no more kings, right? And for a period of time, Oliver Cromwell will become the leader of the government of England. And he ushers in this thing known as the Commonwealth, right? And the Commonwealth was meant to be a pure Republican state, right? So, Commonwealth of England. And it lasted from, let's go ahead and get the years, right? The Commonwealth of England lasted from 1649 to 1660, right? So it only lasted for 11 years, okay? Now, in this thing, though, it is declared that there will be a republic. They will have no more kings. The Parliament will rule with authority. And also, he then ushers in a Puritan social revolution. No! Nobody wants to live in a Puritan society, but that ends up occurring, right? Under the Commonwealth, bars were outlawed. Drinking was outlawed. The theater was outlawed. Excessive jewelry or vanity was outlawed. Perfume was outlawed. You could not sing in public. That was outlawed because it was all distracting from God, right? So he also is going to banish Catholics to a small corner of Ireland, right? Any Catholic would actually be met with extreme authoritarian dictatorship, right? And Cromwell is going to become a very aggressive leader, right? And so, however, there's one thing that he did that was really, really positive. He did allow the Jews to return back to England. Fantastic! Yes! The Jews are allowed to return to England, and they're actually going to be accepted with open arms, mainly due to their economic influx, right? And so Charles actually allowed the Jewish populations to come back to England and allow them to come in free of charge and actually free of any type of negative social connotations, right? So that's one good thing he did, even though he closed bars and outlawed drinking and theater and excessive jewelry and singing. And he also made missing mass was a finable offense, right? So basically, in a nutshell, when you think about it, I said in a nutshell so many times in this clip. Basically, though, in the long run, Oliver Cromwell has basically turned England into his own version of Calvin's Geneva, right? So now during this time period, we're going to see some negative associations, right? A lot of people are going to begin to hate Oliver Cromwell, right? They don't like this Commonwealth thing. They do not like how their favorite things are being banned. Halloween was banned because it was considered a devil's holiday. They did not like the direction things were going. And Thomas Hobbes is going to be one of our first Enlightenment philosophers, right? You need to write him down, put a big star next to him, but he is literally born out of the English Commonwealth period, right? And he modeled his political thought and philosophy after Cromwell. And when I say after Cromwell, I mean he modeled his political philosophy after Cromwell in the sense of he believed Cromwell was negative, right? He thought that the Commonwealth period was stupid, right? He wrote a book about this, and the book is known as The Leviathan, right? Now, the Leviathan, or a Leviathan, is a mythical creature of very large size that is ready to destroy a population, a city, or its people at the drop of a hat, right? The Leviathan is the disgusting, degradation, nastiest part of society. And in this book, he believes that you are the Leviathan, all right? So in his text, in the Leviathan, Thomas Hobbes argues the Commonwealth only exists because people are allowing it, right? He argues that men are the most disgusting thing that has ever existed on the face of the planet. And the idea that you believe that you have individual rights is disgusting to Thomas Hobbes, right? Thomas Hobbes believes that the only thing man is good for is destroying the lives of other men, right? And that's why all of your rights should be given up. No freedom of speech, no freedom of religion, no freedoms of anything, and it should be given to an authoritarian, absolutist leader. That is a very aggressive idea. So Thomas Hobbes is advocating for absolutists, right? He believes that they are a good thing because he believes that if you do not have an absolute government, you'll end up with somebody like Cromwell who's taking everything you love away from you, right? Because that is what rule through the people looks like, okay? So the key concepts on this, also really big one, is he introduces the concept of the social contract, right? Saying that, oh, as a person, I will give up my rights to an authoritarian leader because he will keep me safe, and he will keep me safe from the two worst things in the world, my neighbor and myself, right? So because Thomas Hobbes believes that if I had a cheeseburger and I dropped it off in the middle of the floor and then I said, that is the last cheeseburger on earth, he believes that every one of you will kill each other for that last cheeseburger, and it's not going to be about who needs what and who wants what and splitting it up into evens. It's going to be like, let's murder each other in this idea of a race for dominance. And so basically, Thomas Hobbes believes that people are terrible. He believes that the common man is disgusting and they're villainous and they will rip you off and that they do not want the best for you and that they want to kill you in the long run, right? Thomas Hobbes literally is a product of the Commonwealth period. Nobody likes Thomas Hobbes, right? Now, was he wrong in the sense that no, but Thomas Hobbes and his work is a reflection of the oncoming Enlightenment, and it's also a reflection of what happens in a very, very aggressive social dictatorship under Cromwell in the Commonwealth, right? Now, when this thing continues to roll forward, the problems with the Commonwealth are going to rear their head, right? And Oliver Cromwell is going to become increasingly paranoid, right? Much like Ivan IV, he's going to become much more paranoid. And going off into the 1650s, okay, he's going to be like, this isn't working anymore. This rump parliament and this Commonwealth thing is disgusting. We need to just turn this into a military dictatorship, right? So what Cromwell does is he abolishes the rump parliament and he brings in this idea known as the protectorate. And what the protectorate is right here. It's a military dictatorship, right? Where the leader is elected the Lord Protector. And who do you think Oliver Cromwell elected as the Lord Protector of Europe, or of England? Himself, right? Now, the Hobbes leader everyone was looking for is this idea, right? So, however, Thomas Hobbes is like, this is not what I was talking about, and he's very upset about this, right? So Cromwell will divide England into 12 separate military districts. He's going to enforce Puritan ideas of morality and work and the Protestant work ethic, and he is basically going to ruin everyone's good time, right? So in the process of the protectorate, he outlaws Halloween. In the process of the protectorate, he then also begins to lead massive massacres against Catholics in Ireland and Scotland. He's going to execute priests. He's going to confiscate lands. He then also is going to begin a war. Jot this down. He fights the Second English Civil War, which is against none other than Charles II, right? Charles II, in the Second English Civil War, is going to fight against Oliver Cromwell, trying to take back the ruling authority of, not in the second, no, this isn't is going to try and fight back and retake all of the land that it was going to be lost and try to reinstall himself as king, right? So, and a lot of crazy stuff ends up going on with Charles, but we'll talk about that stuff in class. But he's going to create the ultimate disdain in this process, too, between Ireland and the English, right? So he's fighting a war on top of this and everything else. He's going to execute priests. He's going to confiscate lands. He's going to ban Christmas. And he's also even going to enforce these things known as the Navigation Acts, right? And in the Navigation Acts, he starts telling people in the American colonies that their goods must be shipped and transported on nothing but English boats, right? So this is a really interesting concept due to the fact that the colonists that were actually thriving in Jamestown, Plymouth, in the southern colonies, in the middle colonies of Pennsylvania and things like that, those things are going to begin to, like, not Pennsylvania yet, but like those areas are going to begin to thrive, right? And they're going to start realizing, oh, wait a second, I can ship things for cheaper on Dutch boats because they're offering me a discount where then I even can on English boats that are ripping me off because they're trying to create a monopoly on their trade, right? And then Cromwell goes, no, the Navigation Acts say that English colonists can only trade on English vessels. This is going to anger the colonists and effectively is considered one of the earliest causes to the American Revolution, right? No one likes Cromwell. No one likes Cromwell, right? But the thing about it is when Cromwell dies, you're going to see the restoration, all right? So the protectorate will fail, all right? The protectorate will fail especially when Cromwell finally dies, right? Richard Cromwell, his son, tries to take over in his stead, but the Parliament and the people of England have had enough, right? They're like, this is the stupidest thing that I've ever done in my entire life. I would rather have the Stuarts back than not have Christmas, than force these Navigation Acts on the colonies, than massacre Catholics in Ireland, than ban bars and ban drinking and ban theaters and ban all the things that I used to love, right? So when Cromwell dies, the people vote and lobby to bring the kings back, right? So no one likes the Commonwealth. So the restoration after Cromwell is going to be a very, very big deal. The protectorate is going to fail following Cromwell's death, right? And in 1660, the Old English government will be restored, right? So the Old English government is going to come back, and the restoration period is the return of the Stuarts, right? And Charles II, son of Charles I, will be restored as the King of England, right? So, and this is going to cause a lot of different dramatic ripples throughout all of European history. This is going to cause a lot of very intense things, and this is where we're going to end it, because in class, we're going to start talking about this cat, Charles II, which I believe is one of the most underrated kings of all of Europe, mainly because of the things that he loves, and also because he's got a pretty interesting little story, right? So, we'll talk about this stuff later on. I'll see you guys in class. Y'all have a good one. Talk to you soon.